Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today I want to talk about the Greenskins. See, yesterday after talking about the expanded roster mods, I was mentioning there that a Champions of Chaos style DLC would actually be very good for the Greenskins. Mostly because the Greenskins, like a lot of races in the Warhammer Fantasy universe, have loads of different subcultures. You see, when you think about the Greenskins, you don't actually think Orcs and Goblins together, you think Orcs, Savage Orcs, Black Orcs, Goblins, Forest Goblins, Night Goblins. There's a lot of different cultures in there which act, well, very independently. However, if you look at the Greenskin roster, like we saw yesterday, it's all kind of just lumped together, which is why all the buildings are just kind of there, all the units are kind of mishmashed, and this makes me think, well, we have a new DLC style. This is the whole Champions of Chaos style, which I guess, could be called a culture pack. Why doesn't it get expanded further and just, work on the races that kind of need it? As the Orcs and Goblins, some of you might not know from the tabletop, were one of the most diverse factions purely because there were so many options. Almost as much, if not more, than the actual Warriors of Chaos. And as it stands, we have a decent number of legendary lords for the Greenskins, if we can be honest. We have a Night Goblin, we have a Standard Goblin, well, a Big Goblin, we have a Savage Orc, we have a Black Orc, we have a Normal Orc, but really, they play as a mishmash once again. They play as a typical Greenskin war, so why not if we had a DLC which added, say, a few more legendary lords, because, well, you can never really have enough, and fill out the roster for all of them to have their own possible mini sub-factions. So if you want to, you can play as a dedicated Night Goblin faction, or a dedicated Forest Goblin, hell, even a Orc with loads of Black Orcs. But you have the option of just playing like Chaos Undivided, essentially, just like Archaon the Everchosen, where you have access to all of them. Just a specific faction will be better for you if you played like Azazel focusing on Sineshi warriors. So if you had Skarsnik, if you focused heavily on the Night Goblins, but weren't restricted in any way, shape, or form, it would be kind of better, wouldn't it? So let's discuss some ideas and then work from there. I don't know if this pack could need 4 legendary lords, because let's be honest, we already have a decent amount of characters, and really what we're missing is a Forest Goblin character, which would likely fall under Snaggler Grobspit. While he was a hero choice in the 8th edition army book, it just kind of makes sense just to elevate him, as we've seen in the past where heroes have been elevated to lord options, Festus being one of them and Deathmaster Snickage being another, among a few others, but this could kind of work out, as this would give us the dedicated faction which could start near enough where the Orcs start near Lorelorn Forest, which would be a bit of an issue for the Empire as it stands, but this type of DLC would not appear until a little bit later down the line, so presumably the Empire will already have a decent amount of stuff given to them, at least I can hope. If they want to add in other characters, I wouldn't mind seeing, say for example, Gorfang Rockgut or even Gorbad Ironclaw, Gorbad being a character from the 8th edition army book, and maybe even Gatilla the Hunter. That even gives you 4 characters, enough to kind of just flesh out all the different Greenskins and have a lot of different start positions. Thankfully, however, in the Immortal Empires so far, we do have some varied start positions when it comes to the Greenskins, which is always very good. But imagine if we had, say, Gorfang Rockgut beginning in Black Crag, where he should begin, let's be very honest about that, or maybe even Gatilla the Hunter as a Goblin leader. I could kind of see him as a legendary hero though, but he could start literally anywhere, maybe even hell in the Darklands, just to add a little bit more fighting to the Chaos Dwarfs when we eventually get them. And Gorbad Ironclaw could even be very close to the Empire, maybe through the Border Prince territories, just to kind of add in a little bit of extra flavor. A little start which is close enough to the Badlands, but enough to focus your way into the Empire if you so wish. These are just basic ideas, but Snaggler Grobspit is probably the best option here, as, well, that gives us a Forest Goblin, but that gives us a new take on the Greenskins, and it allows us to have just a bit more fun with a subculture which was unfortunately just kind of ignored in the later editions of Warhammer. When it comes to new units, I believe there has to be more than the Champions of Chaos. Champions of Chaos had a lot of work done to create a lot of new types of skins. That's the best way of saying it, but yeah, it's a lot of the same animations, and we're going to get a lot of the same animations when it comes here, but the difference is that we're not going to get loads of different armor pieces. You have to keep in mind, this is not like creating Chaos Warriors of Sinesh, Chaos Warriors of Tzeentch, Chaos Warriors of Nurgle, which need a bunch of new art assets and all these different types of things, because we don't need that. We actually already have these units, we just don't have the missing weapon variants. So I'd say that it could possibly just justify a few extra new units. So this is the big stabber for the Savage Orcs, which is there to be an anti-large weapon. It would be kind of interesting to see how Creative Assembly could actually implement this as a unit, maybe as a weapons team of sorts, which is just good for taking out big monsters. But then again, it is completely new, and it just would be cool. Then we'd look towards the Spear Chucker, which is a basic ballista, but then again, it's still something to add to the Orc roster, isn't it? Yeah, it might not be the most exciting thing, but I know some people would like to see it. And sometimes it doesn't have to be just the most impressive unit, but just something to add a little bit more. Next, we'd have the Mangler Squigs, because, you know, Mangler Squigs are kind of awesome. Think about giant fanatics, essentially. This is what they are, and it would be interesting to see how they could be implemented once again. And I'd rather to see them as a unit rather than the fanatics, which you just have as a summonable thing that just kind of do their own thing, which is very lore friendly, but Mangler Squigs just look freaking awesome, and yeah, cool factor is a big thing. I know a lot of people on the tabletop used to swear by them. I personally didn't use them as much because they were just a bit unpredictable, like a lot of things in Warhammer Fantasy, but yeah. And then finally, Snotlings, because it's kind of weird that we have a Snotling unit with a pump wagon, but we don't actually have Snotling units, you know, on the floor and stuff. These would just be a basic kind of tar pit. That's all I could actually say. Yeah, they're a tar pit. But think about it in the same way as using Nurglings, but they can break. I imagine that they won't be useful whatsoever other than being a doorstop, but hey, it's always just nice to have that variety. And I know a lot of people who used to love Snotlings back in the day when it came to the tabletop. Same thing as how I used to love the Rat Swarms or the Giant Rats. Sometimes, yeah, they're just kind of special to players. And coming in with an edit here, because I did forget, the Colossal Squig, because every DLC needs to have that one big unit, and a Colossal Squig would be that big unit for the Greenskins, because it's a massive monster, it should be quite fast, it'll do a lot of damage, it just looks kind of cool. I know a lot of people quite like them. Again, I'm not too sure why, but then again, I'm that type of idiot that actually bought 2 of them from Forge World, because I really wanted a Greenskin army, and you know, sometimes the big monsters end up looking as, yeah, why not, you know? You want the big monster just to show off. Then when we start going on to, say, for example, the Lord options, this is where things get interesting, because we currently have the Night Goblin Warboss, the Orc Warboss, and the Goblin Great Shaman as a Lord option, but we need a few more, you know, a Savage Orc Warboss, a Black Orc Warboss, a Night Goblin Great Shaman, an Orc Great Shaman, a Savage Orc Great Shaman, just to add a bit more flavor, give you those options that we're currently missing, as it just adds in a lot more. It gives you that variety, right? We'd also need, and these would be completely new, a Forest Goblin Warboss and a Forest Goblin Great Shaman, which would kind of make sense considering that we do have a decent amount of Forest Goblin stuff already with the spiders, so yeah. And then when we look to the heroes, it's the same. So we'd have a Goblin Shaman, a Night Goblin Big Boss, a Savage Orc Big Boss, and a Savage Orc Shaman, just to add a little bit more flavor, as again, it's kind of needed. Same thing with a Forest Goblin Big Boss and a Forest Goblin Shaman. They'd all have their respective mount options if they have any, and yeah, again, it adds to a lot of variety. And keep in mind that these are supposed to be their own entities, so you'd get access to them with certain buildings and so on. It wouldn't be like the Champions of Chaos where you just turn a goblin into a forest goblin or a orc into a black orc. It's just to have a little bit of variety there. Champions of Chaos DLC had what, 40 something new units? Something along that lines. Imagine if we had that for the Greenskins. And yes, I know the Greenskins are not the most popular, but this is a good idea to just kind of complete them a little bit and then focus on characters and then new units that might potentially come in Warhammer the Old World in around 87 years when Games Workshop decide to give us another bloody update. Yeah, we're still waiting. It's been more than 6 months. Now, there's a lot of stuff that's missing in the form of unit variants, so this is what I said earlier before, where if you look towards the Greenskin army book, you've got all these options that we just don't have right now. And really, all it would take is a weapon swap, a few animation changes. Hell, they probably even have the same animations with another one of their variants. So think, for example, how we have Goblin Spearmen, but then the Night Goblin Spearmen could use the same animations, or just a few things changed here and there. Just reuse a bunch of assets, because this is what's kind of needed. Now, I'm not going to go through every single unit, because we'd be here for hours, probably. There's just a lot of stuff missing, but just on the basic thing, you know, standard goblins with sword and shield, then Night Goblins with the spears instead of hand weapons. You'd get forest goblins. These would be a completely new unit. They would have to be new, but they'd use the same assets, and this would be, you know, a sword variant, a spear variant, and then obviously a bow variant, because those were the most common things when it came to forest goblins way back in the day. There's all these stuff that's missing right now, like for example orcs with spears. The orc boys with spears were popular back in the day, or even savage orcs just with a few weapon variants. Like for example, I'd love savage orcs with additional hand weapons, because it just kind of makes sense, because, well, you know, anti-infantry type of unit. This would be your berserker type of faction, because they are savage orcs. Again, I'm not going to go for everything, because many of you have probably already looked at the Greenskin roster going, oh, why are we missing this? Even if you haven't played tabletop, you can already feel there's a lot of missing entries. Which, yeah, this is going to mean that the Greenskins are likely going to be larger than the Chaos Warriors, but it just kind of makes sense to have all those different options, which are generally the same thing over and over. But think about it how, well, let's be honest, the normal historical games were just basically reskins of themselves. And if we look at, like, historically how the Orcs and Goblins are in lore, yeah, they're pretty much the same. They're the same race. They're just different cultures within it. They'll act very similar in terms of warfare. It's just what separates them is a few special things. What could be done further to this is try separate the factions a little bit. While they should still all be Greenskins, there should be incentivization to play as a certain subculture if you're playing as a subculture itself. So say that you'd be playing as a savage orc character. This would be Wurzag unless a new one ends up being created for it too. Well, both of them would be the same. You would get like a savage orc type of mechanic, which would focus heavily on maybe increasing your physical resistance and also maybe increasing your winds of magic. If you decide to play as a night goblin, well, maybe you can start poisoning areas to be able to get ready to launch an invasion, you know, just have a little bit of extra flavor. If you're playing as Grimgore, you should have like a quest system to go fight characters. What I'm talking about here is not only a massive DLC, but also a way to rework the characters to give them a bit more. Right now, the Greenskins don't really have too much. They have the war mechanic, which obviously is really, really good, but every faction just kind of plays the same eventually, right? Really, it's only Grom that plays any differently, and there needs to be incentivization for that. It's very similar to how we've seen the changes coming into effect for Archaon, Kolek, and Sigvald. Hell, even Bellicor is very drastically different, and he's a FLC Lord. Now, don't take this as me criticizing the Greenskin rework that we got around the Warden and the Paunch, because I thought that was a fantastic change, but what we do need now is a bit of extra flavor for all the characters, so it just feels like all the characters have something to go by, right? Something to make them quite unique and a reason to play as everyone else. So instead of a Greenskin rework, how about a Greenskin character rework alongside this Greenskin Tribes DLC, essentially? I don't know, I feel like that could be very useful and it would bring a lot of fresh life to the Greenskins and a lot more reason for people to play. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a discussion. I just want to spitball some ideas because I like the Greenskins. I'm a big fan of them. Hell, I'm still painting up a lot of my Greenskins because I have a metric ton of them. And the more I paint them and the more I talk about the Greenskins, the more I want to see them just slightly improved in Total War Warhammer because they're already in a very good place, but they could be a little bit better.